government. He was arrested for distributing or writing a newspaper. He was taken to court, not for real. It was another a paper, I think he will talk about it. And then he was arrested, taken to court, but then discharged because there were no evidence against him. Then this man came up with other people and formed, he was an editor actually for a paper called Foreign, which is still existing, a very popular paper. This young man joined with some people and formed a party that is called People Democratic Organization for Independence and Socialism, short DOI. I can remember in the 70s, the first president of the Republic of the Gambia used to call them the Ndoyari. But then it captivated youths. In 2002, this gentleman became a member of the National Assembly and served until 2007. During that period, he was the majority leader. He was also, at that time, a Pan-African Parliament member and also a National Alliance for Democracy and Development, commonly known as NADD. He was also a candidate for presidential election in 2006, but he lost. But he came up with a massive number that was 6%. This gentleman that I'm going to introduce, over the years, became very powerful, very interested in politics, and consistent in what he was preaching. What he preached the following year would be the same thing that he has done the last year, the previous year. In 2016, I wrote something very long, but I'm going to cut it short. 2016, the Gambia decided that all the political parties are going to come together to root out a dictator that had ruled a country under 2 million for 22 years. And he had contributed a lot to gather different political parties to unite and then stand against the gentleman or the tyranny, the dictator that we had there. Generally, in December 2016, 2nd December, the Gambia decided that we're going to move on without a dictator. To our surprise, December 2nd, the then President, Jammeh, appeared on the GRTS, the state radio and the state television, and announced that he has decided to reject the outcome of the recent election results due to serious and unacceptable abnormalities, not knowing that it was the Gambian that were going to reject him. When he made that arrangement, this gentleman that I'm going to introduce said, no. Go back to the Constitution. You cannot do that. Jammeh didn't listen. 12th of December, this gentleman came out again and said to Yaya Jammeh, you had no mandate. Not every Gambian knew that Yaya Jammeh didn't have that mandate, but he was brave enough to point out to Yaya Jammeh that you have to respect people's choice, our constitution, therefore you have no mandate. If you don't get out until the 19th of January, you will be counted as a rebel. Ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman that I'm going to introduce, that is called Honorable Halifa Sallah, is the current advisor to the Gambian President Adama Barrow, and he is also the national member for Serekunda. I am really glad and honored to stand before you and introduce Mr. Halifa Sallah. Thank you very much.
Can you please go on to that one, our honorable? You are welcome, Halifa. Welcome. I just don't have to delay you people, just to give the mic to our honorable member of parliament, Halifa Sallah. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Everybody here is a very important person. And that is why I'm not good at protocol. I salute all the important personalities who are here assembled. An ocean lies between where I am here today and where I came from some days ago. An ocean which has swallowed many of our citizens. Many of young people who came into this world from mothers who spent 9 months to prepare for their birth, with all the pain of motherhood and the joy of bringing a child into the world, and the hope of that child becoming somebody that will make that mother proud. Based on our customs, that child, after 7 days, will be welcomed as a part of society. People will gather for the naming of that child. Name is the identity of a human being. And the parents will select a person they respect, a person they treasure, to name after that child, so that the child will have a role model. That parent spent money, energy, time, the pains of ill health, sleeplessness, to nurture that child to become a person hoping ultimately that person will grow, educate the child, for that child to eventually discover a society that cannot provide him or her with the job or the income that will enable him or her to live a dignified life. And the child develops an aspiration to go farther afield, to venture, to be ready to suffer, so that the pains of the parents, the pains of the elderly parents, poor elderly parents, will be solved. And because where that child is going is also a place that is also going through transition, government will say they cannot carry the burden of women. And therefore they also build fences of soldiers, fences of immigration officers, to be able to prevent that child from venturing into the world of his dreams or her dreams. So now that very child is in the wilderness, not able to reach, not able to go back, a victim of blind destiny. So we are here gathered to think about our own society, its challenges, so that we can take charge of our destiny, because that's what a human being is all about. A human being is a thinker. A human being is a creator, an inventor. A human being is a builder. That's why we are human. We cannot claim to be human beings until we accept that we have the capacity to think and the capacity to solve our problems. So it is very important for people to know that this type of gathering should increase. Before we saw it as a waste of time. That's why we are where we are. Because knowledge must become the property of everybody in society, not just a few. So that we live as human beings in liberty, dignity, and prosperity. I've had the question, and the answer is simple. We became so-called independent 52 years ago. The Gambia has a history. The nation has a history. The people have a history. We must know our history to know who we are. Gambia as a territory, and that's why we say one Gambia, started to come into being on the 10th of August 1889, when the British and the French met to carve the current borders of the country and said, this is going to be the colony that will be under Great Britain. But there was resistance. By 1902, that resistance was broken, and then they established the provinces and the colony. employed commissioners and a governor, and Gambia became a colony, and we the people became subjects without rights to determine our manner of government. After many years, 1965, the second phase of our development. They said we became independent, but we still had a governor in Banjul. Why? Because executive power still resided in the Queen of England. That's why we had a governor there. And we had a prime minister and not a president. On the 24th of April 1970, Gambia became a republic. The governor disappeared. And the president emerged. And Gambia became a sovereign entity. On that day, a new Gambian should have been born. A Gambian who will understand that sovereignty resides in him or her. That is why under the 1997 Constitution, the first chapter, it says, Gambia is a sovereign republic, but sovereignty resides in the people of the Gambia. Sovereignty is power. The power that belonged to the Queen now belongs to you. That's why you are very important persons. The power with the Queen controlled now is deposited in you, the Gambian people. That is why you cannot have a president without you voting for that president. You cannot have a National Assembly member without you voting for the National Assembly member. You cannot have a council without you voting. That is the depository of your sovereignty, the sovereignty of the nation. And as sovereign Gambians, with power, all the powers are equal, irrespective of your ethno-linguistic origin, that is ethnicity, as people say, so call it tribe, or religion, or gender, or any other characteristic. If that was deposited in us, and we knew it, who will be talking about tribalism today? The fact that people are still talking about tribalism, it shows that we are yet to be new Gambians. Because in 1970, a new Gambian who should have been born is one who recognizes that Gambia has become a community of sovereign citizens, equal in sovereignty, irrespective of their ethno-linguistic origin, religion, gender, or any other characteristics. And all of us would have recognized that our power to vote is equal. And that we vote for two reasons. One, to ensure that we have a government that will take our resources, put them together to build an economy that will enable each of us, according to the division of labor in society, to have a place to earn and to live. That is why we elect presidents, give them power to appoint ministers, to establish ministries of health, education, all these services, and have a national budget to finance the services to be provided for us. And every 5 years, to render account. That is the purpose of our vote, to select a president who will be able to utilize her intelligence and those of the ministers to provide the policies and ensure that they receive the finances to be able to deliver the services we need. And that is clearly stipulated in the current Constitution, 1997 Constitution. that we elect the president for that purpose. Because under the Constitution it says, and listen very carefully, that since sovereignty resides in you, no authority should exist in the Gambia that fails to derive power from your consent. In black and white it says that authority should exercise that power only to promote your general welfare and prosperity. So no government is fit to govern. No government is fit to govern that lacks the capacity to promote your general welfare and prosperity. Then it empowers you every 5 years to measure the performance of the government. If that government fails to deliver prosperity and general welfare, it is your duty to remove that government and select such other government that may be able to deliver that welfare. 47 years ago, since 1970, if we had that knowledge, would we be where we are today? No. Then the other purpose is people who will make laws for us, laws that will guarantee our liberty, laws to be enforced by a police who are educated to respect our liberty, to be ready to protect us, to be ready to protect the properties of the people. So that police will recognize our rights. Because the rights of every sovereign citizen fundamentally is a right to life. Nobody should take your life arbitrarily. The right to liberty. Nobody should subject you to arrest and arbitrary detention. The right to privacy. Nobody should enter your home without your permission. The freedom of expression. You are free to examine whatever happened in your country and express your opinion without hindrance. You have a right to religion. You can hold on to any religion and practice your religion without any interference. You have a right to freedom of assembly, whether a union, student organization, women organization, any form of organization, you have a right to freedom of association, including political association belonging to political parties. You have a right to petition leaders against any violation of your rights. And you have a right to seek redress at the High Court for any violation of your rights. That is the law. And that's what every Gambian should have been told since 1970. That is what should have been taught in our education system. At kindergarten, they begin to help you to understand that you are a sovereign citizen of the Gambia, entitled to all those rights, and having the right ultimately to elect or be elected to any office of the land. Now, if we knew that, and we knew the wealth of the country comes from us, and the wealth should be utilized to build hospitals and put drugs so that we will be healed when we are ill, to build schools to educate us, to build roads. Then somebody comes along and says, hey, I'm a Jola, I'm a Mandinka, I'm a Sarahule, elect me on the basis of my tribe. Yes, you go and elect that person. He goes to the state house. He becomes the executive. How many ministerial posts? How many people could he give posts as ministers? And then he comes with a budget. And that budget is abused. and you go to a hospital, and you don't find the drugs, and you are from that person's so-called tribe, would you be given drugs because you are from that person's so-called tribe, when the drugs are not available in that hospital? Suppose you become a messenger, or a driver, grade 1, less than $1,000 a month. If you go to your accountant, will the accountant pay you more money than $1,000 because you belong to the tribe of the president? If you go to the market to sell and you're supposed to pay duty, will they say don't pay duty because you're from the tribe of the president? You see, it's ignorance which makes us believe that you can rely on a tribe to prosper. What is important is to get a leadership which utilizes national resources to provide the services that are necessary, so that when you go to the hospital, you will not say, I will be cured by somebody from my tribe. You will meet a doctor there with the competence to cure you. That's what you're looking for. The teacher who will teach your child. That's what you're looking for. The engineer who will build the roads and bridges. That's what you do not care which ethno-linguistic group that person hails, which religion, which gender. What you want is somebody of competence, somebody with the professionalism to deliver the services. Since 1970, that is the education we should have received. Education for citizenship. It should have been in our primary schools, so that our constitutions will be taught, simplified and taught, so that all the basic elements will be known before you finish basic education. That is what is basic education. To know yourself, know your country, know the world. That is what is basic education. That is what should have happened. It did not happen. Coup d'etat occurred. Another constitution emerged. Another self-perpetuating ruler consolidated power. One for 30 years, another for 22 years. Because the Gambian people were not taught to understand that sovereignty resides in them. That is not that person, but you, who should determine a matter of government. That person is your servant. But when you are ignorant of your rights and your power, you become a horse on whose back that person rides from the cradle to the grave.
Yes.
Why are we talking about national reconciliation today? We did not build a nation. In 1970, if we built a nation, each of us would be proud of our citizens and be proud of the accomplishment of our citizens, because you will know that the individual doesn't build a nation. It is collectively, through our collective intelligence, that we build a nation. So each of us will appreciate the other, because you know, with the development of that person's capacity in that area of concern, the nation thrives. That's how national unity is built. Because when you go to the school, you're not the teacher, but if the teacher is a professional one and take good care of your child, you will develop great appreciation for that teacher, great love for that teacher. That's what brings about national unity. That's why we're talking about one nation. We struggled against colonial domination, which drew our boundary and said, this is the Gambia, but the colonial Gambia. We struggled to liberate that country and became a liberated Gambia because one Gambia owned by us. That's why we say one Gambia. On the 24th of April 1970, we became a republic. It says that we are now a community of sovereign citizens who must now work together to ensure our common liberty, dignity, and prosperity. We became one nation. A Gambian nation. Today, if you travel anywhere in the world, you have a Gambian passport. You are recognized as a Gambian. They cannot distinguish your ethno-linguistic group, your religion. What they distinguish is your Gambianness. We are a nation. And because we belong to the same nation, it is our collective intelligence that can build it. That's why we are one. Because all of us will go and vote, and the votes will be counted. And when we take the queue to vote, they do not say, hey, Mandinka speakers, take this queue. Yola speakers, take this queue. Wolof speakers, take this queue. Sarawak speakers, take it. Full speakers. No. You join the queue, irrespective of your origin, irrespective of your religion, and in secret, you put your vote. That is for you to see that you are a part of a nation. It's symbolic. We should not be divided. It should make a choice, and we should respect the choice of the people. We can be diverse and still united. And that is symbolic. The voting method is symbolic. You vote in secret so that nobody will know who you voted for. But everybody will know who won the election. So this is the nation that should have emerged. It did not emerge until the consolidation of self-perpetuating rule, and by 2016, everybody in the Gambia was wondering how change could be effected. Either you are directly a victim or you are affected by the manner of government in the country. Everybody became concerned. Many people felt that the power was so entrenched that it could not be removed through the ballot box. And they were calling for mass uprising. But they were calling for mass uprising at a time when the people who were at home, the vast majority, did not even believe that they can remove a government through the ballot box. Not to talk about to go in the streets. So as a result, the president at the time felt very powerful, especially after the arrest of the UDP leaders and their incarceration. He became overconfident. And that is why even the electoral system was left, and there was encouragement for a non-violent election in 2016, believing that if he wins an election within that environment, everybody will feel that he has won an election. But to those who understand the science of all of this, you have two powers in a republic. The power of the state and the power of the people. The state has military force, police force, all instruments of coercion. So it can suppress as power. It can miseducate. It can abuse resources of the state. And when the people are not aware and divided, then they can be dominated. So what is the answer? Because the people have the power to vote the person who controls state power from office. So if you want that to happen, you must make a people aware and you must organize them. Awareness and organization became the strength, the might of the people. That is why when despair polluted the atmosphere, orders called for the presidential candidates to meet and form a coalition so that we become organized. Because we wanted a new start for Gambia, we put parties behind us. Because we don't want self-perpetuating rule anymore, we put power, hunger for power behind us. And in the negotiation, the two fundamental elements guiding coalition formation was number one, that let's select one person and let him stand as an independent candidate so that the person belongs to no party but belongs to all, as a means of organizing the people, as a means of bringing national unity, to have the power to effect change. In order to defeat self-perpetuating rule once and for all, he said, even the person who's going to stand, even though there is a 5-year term, but symbolically, the person will say, I will stand, I'll be there only for 3 years, and then followed by a 2-term limit, and never again will Gambia have self-perpetuating rule. We believe that through this, we can unify the political parties, the political opposition. And that's precisely what happened. Then we started the campaign. Jammeh started by preparing for the 2016 election by insulting the Mandinka ethno-linguistic group. Then he became angry and started insulting. But everybody knows that the person who is in power has the advantage of the power of the state. Many will join him because they have interest to preserve. Many will join him hoping that they will be able to gain interest out of the election, out of proving that they support him. And many will be offended by insults, so people will be divided. Once divided, you are conquered. They call it divided. Great thinkers like this call it. It's a tactic of power. So to strengthen the people, we raised their awareness. We told them, if you follow him and start insulting, insults will never win you support. Ignore him. Let's see that we are one people. Our destiny is the same. Let's propagate the idea of one Gambia, one nation, one people. Because what we want is liberty. What we want is prosperity. And that cannot come into fruition unless we effect change. And we cannot effect change when we are divided. So we campaign for a slogan. And throughout the campaign, we contained insults, we contained anger, and promoted awareness. And for the first time in the campaign of a united opposition, one did not see people being arrested. One did not see fighting. By the time the campaign trail reached the urban area, the tens of thousands in the street, in jubilation, everybody knew that change was inevitable. And at that material time, Jammeh had known that he has lost the election because he became tame. No, in reality, because the two campaign teams will even come side by side with you, parallel to each other. And those who used to guard him and prevent people from taking the track that is trying to ignore that. That was very symbolic. It shows that change had come. So, through national reconciliation, power was won. We united the people so that we change. Yeah. And therefore, we must continue to unite the people to build a nation. When he heard the results, he was convinced that he lost, even though the announcement distorted the figures. And that's why he acknowledged that he lost and accepted it. But when you come face to face with powerlessness, then you see your vulnerability. When you come face to face with powerlessness, you begin to see your vulnerability. So he began to experience what every Gambian had been experiencing when he was vulnerable. And maybe he will write his memoir. And I'm not trying to carry that. I'm being very realistic. I'm trying to analyze. I believe if he writes his memoir, he will explain to us why he changed his mind. And my belief is that he has seen how vulnerable he is when he's no longer handling the instrument of coercion. So before we get to that level, we should begin to learn that the might of individual is past. It's the might of the people that is real. Because an individual can only be strong by usurping the power of the people based on the power we entrust you with. And you use the instrument of coercion to control the people. But the real power is the power of the people. And he retracted his statement. And before he retracted his statement, before even the election, people were becoming divided. The election was going to be a tough one, and everybody realized it. And people started buying cutlasses and having identity symbols. Yes, we can laugh now. It was very traumatic. Those of us who knew what was happening, we refused to emphasize it. Because if you repeat something unremittingly until people believe it, then the nation would have disintegrated. Unity would have been impossible because everybody would have panicked. So we refuse to emphasize that and continue to emphasize the clarion call, one Gambia, one nation, one people. One Gambia, and we repeated that unlimitedly so that the people will accept that to combat the fear tactic that would have led the nation to this difficulty. So when he decided to retract, soldiers were posted in the streets, sandbags, and an unarmed opposition. So what was anticipated, the warning was there. I will not tolerate any demonstration. The warning was clear. And obviously the anticipation is that you've gained victory. What are you waiting for? It's to go and take it. And that's what many Gambians called for. But then if that happened, many would have died. Civil war would have emerged. Who will intervene in a state of civil war? Why is it possible? Look at Libya. Look at Somalia. In a state of civil war, a nation disintegrates. Within a span of a week or two, 50,000 Gambians left the Gambia. 120,000 Gambians became internally displaced persons. And others have tied their bags waiting for time and circumstances to dictate what they will do. The nation was disintegrated. But there too, because of understanding that we are the sovereign people and our sovereign will cannot be negotiated, cannot be compromised in any way. So that is why we say the sovereign people who go to electoral world should remain sovereign and ask themselves the fundamental question: when should the person they have elected assume office? That question had to be asked for the Constitution to answer. That's what a republic is. A republic must have a republican constitution. And we must know that Constitution. The Constitution says on section 63(2) that the person elected will assume office on the day of expiry of the term of office of the incumbent. That was very clear. The next question that had to be asked, the question the Constitution had to answer: when is the term to expire? The same Constitution says that election should take place within 3 months before the expiration of the term of the incumbent. So it was clear that elections take place and leave the incumbent with a residue of term left. So it was clear that even though the incumbent as well, just like in the United States, there had to be a transition for the 5 years, because section 63(1) says he has a 5-year term. So you had to look at the day when he was sworn in for that term in 2012 and see when it will expire in 2017. And that was 18th January. So we said, now it is over. You can say whatever you want, but on the 18th of January, if you continue in power, you have power over the soldiers. You can direct them to put sandbags in the street. We do not care. You, the people, ignore that. That power is entrusted to him. It does not belong to him. On the 18th, that power will no longer be in his hands. So forget about them. Fraternize with them. So that you live in peace with them and wait for that day, that D-Day, that final day. This is what happened. So consequently, everybody accepted that. And what did that do? Organization. What it about? Awareness. Limited, but still awareness. People know their rights. And that is why when ECOWAS came, they were pleased. Instead of coming and found an opposition which was perturbed, they found people who knew exactly what should happen, and they were told what should happen. They said, well, this is easy. Now we are also going to go back and wait for the 19th. They even promised to come on the 19th to the celebration. But then said that they must support the legal authority in the country on that day. So on the 7th of December, here a standby force. We told them, yes, prepare the force, but don't say that you are going to attack at this time, because he is still in power according to the Constitution. After the 18th, then obviously he has to decide his fate. And that's the agenda that was pursued. He called a state of emergency on the 18th, and he called it on the 17th to stretch his power, extend his power. It means that consciously he knew that on the 18th, that was the day, that was the end of his term. So he was just trying his chance. So that done, the Constitution was also interpreted correctly that you cannot deprive a person who has acquired a right, that right, under Section 100 of the Constitution. You cannot do that. Therefore, that state of emergency is irrelevant. And that's why, on the 19th, Barrow had to be sworn in practically in Senegal, because an embassy is considered the property of a nation. So it's a territory outside of a territory, national territory outside of a territory, and that's why he was sworn in the embassy in Dhaka. On the 19th, Gambia had changed, but Gambia was also sitting on an edge. The balance of probability of war or peace was being determined by minutes, because the troops were around the border. You had naval vessels and you had air support. So it's very clear that Gambia was heading towards war. Some felt that war was the answer because he was going to refuse to go. But many things happened that many Gambians are yet to know. And that history is not yet right to write. But the role of people in the security force, who for months began to examine all the things we said about the Constitution, and also became convinced that on the 18th, they will be rebels if they support the existing regime. And when Barrow assumed office, and they were approached, they made a commitment support what the Constitution says. So that is why people must be very careful in the way they analyze the situation in the Gambia. Because if war broke out, you bomb the state house, of course, Gambia will disappear. Yeah. But the arsenal in state house, what would have that meant? And the fear tactic that would have built in the nation, the military would have disintegrated, the police force would disintegrate, everything will disintegrate, everybody will be searching for where to go. So you will not have centralized power. And the outcome would be unpredictable, just as we've seen in Egypt, Libya, etc. Because the NATO forces were very powerful forces. They bombard Qatar. Which force is more powerful than NATO? They bombarded Qatar. But no matter how large and powerful the force, they are unable to put Libya. That is why some of us decided to work with a great lady, Ellen Johnson Shirley, to show that the forces internally were taking decisions, and that through negotiation this thing may be settled, unless Jammeh wanted to commit suicide, because he had no one to back his military. So he was in the state house, his ministers had gone, his ambassadors had gone, his military had gone, his police force had gone. He was there alone, he was rolling shadows. Because in the streets, on the 20th, all of you knew, everybody disappeared into their homes. Nothing moved. And therefore, realizing the very powerlessness that may have frightened him to resist, now he has seen that there was no power to resist. So he had to accept his vulnerability and decided to live. And what confirms that he had no power on the 21st of January is that when he was leaving, supporters of the coalition went to the airport. And the security forces, instead of using tear gas and attack them, they were using telephone calls to call the leaders of the coalition and say, come and ask these people to leave the airport so that this man would leave. I was called to go to the airport to talk to the people. So he had no power on the 21st and 11th. So in essence, yes, the economic forces did play a role. That is the scare tactic. But if they use that force, that would not have been their interest. So what did it? Is the people of the Gambia, civil and military, seeing that no one was a rebel after the 19th, and therefore he was left alone, powerless. Now I'll come to the conclusion. People are talking about national reconciliation. They even had meetings at home informing national reconciliation. People see national reconciliation as Yolas and Mandinkas, Wolofs and Sarafules, these are sitting down and chatting and talking, and that shows that still the new Gambia has not arisen. Because it cannot arise until a new Gambian arise. A new Gambian depends on the new Gambian. And the new Gambian must learn the lesson that together during the campaign we were united to defeat self-perpetuating rule. Together, we were united to defeat the resistance of a self-created ruler. Having attained victory, we should start to build a nation together. And the starting point is for each Gambian to know that the sovereignty of the nation resides in you. That there is no minority in a sovereign republic. There are only citizens who are equal in sovereignty. All the other characteristics are accidents of birth and other chance situations. What is real is your birthright as a Gambian citizen with the power to determine your manner of government like anybody else, with the power to stand if you so desire, or the right to stand for people to vote to you for any office. That's the right of every citizen. And that's what we should recognize. And we know that we have a transition. We've elected a president, an independent candidate, who became president. The duty is to have a transitional administration that will transform our constitution, enrich it, so that our sovereignty is affirmed. Constitutional reform to introduce a two-term. Today, let me tell you, and we do not wish it, but if President Barrow is not there, if something happened there, who would be the president of the Gambia? Yes? Is the Speaker of the National Assembly will be the president of the Gambia? Because you need a vice president. And if president is not there, it's the vice president who will become president. If the vice president is not there, then the Speaker of the National Assembly will become president. And the danger is that neither the vice president or the speaker is elected. So you need a constitutional reform which will say that when the office of president becomes vacant, at least within 3 months you must elect another person for the office of president. That must be a constitutional reform. That's how you reform a constitution. You have national dialogue, look at all the elements, and bring a package of constitutional reform. So therefore, the transition must come with a constitutional reform. The absolute majority principle, so that nobody can become president of the Gambia without 50+%. All these are constitutional reforms. So to make matters sure, so that at least there will be some form of dialogue. The transition was designed to build a new Gambia and a new Gambia. It was not designed to be owned by a party. It was designed to be owned by the people. So that the policies will improve the economy. The violation of rights will be history. Freedom will be nurtured. And every Gambian will know his or her rights. So that we have an open society where the minds will be free to think. And we start to create. As it stands, executive power resides in the President of the Republic, who by virtue of the fact that he had a coalition, initially relied on the political parties to select ministers. These are political appointments. And ultimately, we now have a government. But we do not have a development blueprint at the moment. It is being worked on. But different elements are showing their intentions. and aspirations in guiding the governance of the state. And that is why people are confused as to the future of the Gambia. Some people. But what I must tell you is that there is no need for confusion. What you voted for was regime change, not system change. You voted for Gambia to go. We've achieved that. Take joy in that. Take pleasure in that. Know that now you are starting a new battle. A battle to change a system so that it can guarantee your prosperity and general welfare. But what is different this time, you must think. You must not surrender your sovereignty. You must know that leaders are there to serve you. You must be ready to interrogate how they are serving you. Because power still resides in your hands. In 3 years, 5 years, whatever the term is, you'll be asked to decide again who should manage the affairs of the country. This time it's not about regime change, it will be about system change. Those who will come before you, parties and individuals, must tell you how they will build your education system so that your child will be educated, how they will build your health system so that you will be healed, how they will build your infrastructure, how they will guarantee employment, everything that you need to prosper would have to be elaborated on, and you decide who is most competent to deliver and put that person in office. That is how you will become the architect of your own destiny. You must move away from being people seeing yourself as belong to an ethno-linguistic group, a particular religion, to a particular gender, and see yourself as Gambian citizens in whom the sovereignty of the nation resides. You must see yourself as a very important person. That you are not going to be a tool of a human being. You will not be bought by a human being like yourself. And you will not be fooled by a human being like yourself. I say there is no tribalism in the Gambia. There is no tribalism in the Gambia. What you have in the Gambia is opportunism and ignorance. What you have in the Gambia is opportunism and ignorance. Because Gambia was there, Jawara was there. And we are dealing with the history of Jannah. When he was there in the State House with all the facilities, what was the life of the Jola driver who was earning less than 1,000 a day? The Jola farmer who could not get fertilizer seeds and farming implements. They were selling in the market, earning less than $100 a day. What was the life of that person who cannot go to a hospital, who is suffering from hypertension and diabetes, and cannot go and buy the medicine, expensive medicine that is required to sustain it? How many had perished with their hands cut, their feet amputated? How many were taken to prison? Yes, okay, you belong to my tribe. I'll give you this job. Yes, you take the job. You think that you can benefit from that and become a rich person, and you squander the resources. The next thing, you've squandered my resources. Where? Mine too. How many people who affiliated with him on the basis of tribal leanings eventually found themselves in mine too? So, how did tribes serve those people? Of course, when the political leader appeals to the person, yes, it appears that the tribe will serve you. But when it's there, you can only be a driver, you can be a nurse, you can be a teacher, you can be anything. But you will get the salary that is provided for by the budget. What about if you build a nation which provides you with the facility that you need to earn an income to be able to live a dignified life? That's what we need to build. So my conclusion is precisely that. History has been made. Gambia has changed forever. It will never be the same again. But the new page which has been turned is black. We need to start to write the history of the new Gambia. It's not going to be written in words. It will be written by deeds. Those who are living and those who are dead, all are history makers. So what is important now is to follow government policy, have a voice in determining whatever government is doing. And as far as diaspora is concerned, you must see yourself as part and parcel of the Gambian nation. And you must demand enfranchisement. The diaspora must be given the right to vote. All of us have agreed as Gambia opposition for electoral reform, and most of us are now in government. We all agreed, and we wrote that recommendation to Jammeh. Therefore, what we wrote to Jammeh, now we have power to implement. Yes. It is important for us to realize, and I have said it in Malta, I'm a member of the EU ACP Parliamentary Assembly, that is Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific. I told them in Malta that they're talking about the issue of migration. And they are building weapons and armies in Libya, etc., so that they can control migrants, spending billions. But people from where the migrants originate, for years have been disadvantaged by leadership that have been unable to harness our resources for our development. But they must also understand that their own people, elderly people, are having homes in that part of the world. In Gambia, there are many British citizens with homes. They find it easier to live in the Gambia than to live in Britain with the type of income that they are having. So intolerance will not benefit the world. That capital is also, they're investing. Capital is moving from that part of the world, profit, to their part of the world. They are benefiting. Intolerance will not serve investors. We do not need a world of intolerance. We need a world of tolerance. Because benefits are coming from all parts of the world. They see people, but they do not look at the capital that is coming. But if you weigh capital and people, capital coming from Africa, coming to Europe, and the people coming from Africa, coming to Europe, you will see that the capital coming from Africa, if you weigh the salaries and income and the benefits, somehow cost-benefit analysis need to be done by researchers. We must demand that so that we can have a better sense of international relations in the world. It is important for people who are here to have a sense of dignity, that there is no doubt that they left not to make other societies worse, but to make their society better and other societies better. We must realize that now we must become more organized to be able to educate others to understand us more. You must build your community to become a community. A community where mothers and fathers will solidify their partnerships, their respect for each other, their love for each other. Because philosophers have said that a child is nurtured before he or she is born. And that means the mother and father must develop a relationship which will reinforce the nurturing of that child. We'll become a stronger community if we have respect for each other, if we have care for each other. Because that will enable us to hold meetings like this, despite our busy schedule, to talk about marriages and marital breakdowns, problem marriages, violence in marriages, talk about children, problem children, difficulties they have. And we can collaborate with home so that holidays can be organized for these children who may be having problems, or maybe not even having problems, together to come to a holiday camp. Organized for the so that they can work as Gambian culture, not the just. I'm giving you an example that the purpose of the naming ceremony was not to waste. It was to give the child an identity. So we need to review the culture itself and remove what is there that serves no purpose. And what serves the purpose of building the identity of the child will reinforce it. We can have that type of relation to build the social dynamics of our community, the education of our children. Through your partnership, you may even develop shareholding to invest in the Gambia. You investigate, look at how much you need to contribute. Shares does not mean everybody is a millionaire. 10 kronas is the shareholder. You combine it into million people, that's 10 million. You look at America, that's what has happened. All their transport companies, etc., the workers become some element of shareholders. When they saw that unions were striking all the time, they decided to make them shareholders so that they can also get a part of the benefit. These are all means of promoting prosperity. My last word is that Gambia is not a poor country. I'm just from nowhere. And the leaders I met, I emphasized that to them. That the science of economics that I have learned emphasizes that you can never eradicate poverty without a state building sovereign national wealth. The national resources of the country must belong to the people. Saved for them by those they elect. And that's what happened to Norway. That is why their foreign reserves is rich. And regardless whether the government is conservative, liberal, socialist, social democrat, whichever government, that architecture they will never touch. Because the wealth of the state will guarantee the welfare of the people and prevent the poverty of the people. And Norway has an ocean, Gambia has an ocean. Gambia is smaller than Norway, but the ocean in Gambia is big. The water is big. Norway has waters, Gambia has whole ocean. And they were a fishing nation. So instead of our government giving licenses for fishing vessels to come, take the fish in large numbers away and just pay token fishing licenses. We need to empower our people to be able to have those fishing vessels. And even if you're a foreign fishing vessel registered in the Gambia, when you fish, you must load it in the Gambia, offload it in the Gambia, process it in the Gambia, provide employment, export it, and ensure that that's what we need. That's what we need. How many Gambians became sailors in the fishing vessels of other nations and are maltreated almost like slaves? When we have an ocean.
Yes.
Look at our farming community. Jammeh said Vision 2016 that by 2016 we will not be importing rice anymore. And what we were importing was about 200,000 tons. All they could produce in 2015 was just 57,000 tons. But if we could produce the 200,000 tons, you are plowing back 1.9 billion into the economy of the Gambia, into the farming community of the Gambia. And there are some economists who said, okay, look at America, only 3% of the population are engaged in farming. So let's just get all these people, come from everywhere, just take over the land. We are not saying that there should be no investment, but it must be strategic investment. We are not saying that there should be no private capital, there must be, but strategically invested in the productive base of the economy. Because the farmers have only the land. If you give it to 3% of the population, and Gambia is not America where you have industries employing people, services employing people, where will you employ all those people who will be removed from the land? So you must rethink economics, not become imitators, but be innovators. So therefore we are saying, to improve farming, to be able to produce what we need, give fertilizer, farming implements, and seeds to the farmers, establish cooperative bank so that they will give it to the farmers and they will use their family farms to produce. They will expand their production, eradicate food insufficiency, ensure food security, sell outside, plow back billions into the farming community and the Gambian economy. Process. Look at GGC, it's supposed to process grounds. If you process the grains, it provides jobs. Edible oil, over 600 million imported. 600 million over, and this is on the estimation. I'm just estimating so that I'll not be wrong. Then if you produce that, 600 million will be plowed back into our economy. That's how you build a nation. So my conclusion is, the answers are there, but governments must choose. And because governments must choose, then governments have a lot to do in determining the policy of the government. So I will address one issue that I'm sure people will ask me, then why did we not become a minister in the government?
Everybody is asking about
that question yesterday. I'll answer it and I'll conclude. You see, the borough administration is elected not to put the policy of a party into operation, not to implement the policy of a party. It is put into office to stabilize the Gambian economy, all aspects of Gambian society, so that Gambia will be better today than it was. But if you have a coalition government with different ministers, each with different ideas, You cannot impose
Yes.
the ideas of a group on them. And if you insist, then there will be clashes within the cabinet. And ultimately, one will have to resign. I'll just give you an example. All of you know that when Barrow was in Dakar, I was in the Gambia. And what we shared, no, not from that angle, what we shared, only two of us knew. The respect between us originated from that. I was the first to announce the office of vice president. Why? Because at that time he was advised that it was urgent to have a vice president because he was in Dhaka. And if anything happened, the Speaker of the National Assembly at that time was in the hands of the APRC. And that one constitutionally would have been the president of the country. But then the person appointed eventually, with the facts that came, showed that the person was above 65, according to the information. I'm not saying he's 65, according to the information. And I stood and had a press conference and said that the president has been advised to look at that issue because it's a constitutional provision under Section 70 that the vice president will have the same qualification as the president of the country. And you could not at that time, before the amendment of the Constitution, be a president if you are above 65. That was stated. But until now, that post of vice president has not been filled. Well, it is the volition of the executive. So if I were to be in that government and I give an advice and that advice is rejected, should I stay in that government? No. Of course, I would not have. I would have had that type of personality where I'll be in a government, see that you're not doing what I think is right. What would I do? I'll resign. Why go into a government and resign when you know exactly what is possible?
True.
The executive is the president. And you cannot have two presidents in a country. And somebody introduced me as the advisor of the president. Well, it's good to introduce me. That's what happened in Norway. I didn't think that you will be giving me this coverage of who I am. But essentially, he did appoint me as an advisor and wanted to pay me daily as an advisor. And by now, if anything happens and is wrong, people will be saying, look at the two transports he has. Look at his salary. What is the use of this advisor? Don't bother us, this opportunist. Maybe everybody say, and all this before they assume office. Or when they assume, look at him, he's enjoying and we are suffering. That's what you will say. But I told him that I don't want to be an executive advisor. I want to be a voluntary advisor. Because an advisor is somebody who comes to you and expresses an opinion, but you will decide it. And that's the role that we have always played in Gambian society. There is no leader of Gambia, Jamara, anybody who will ever say that we have not contributed to their thinking in resolving certain problems of the Gambia. We are here to render the best advice because Gambia can only develop through our collective intelligence. So in essence, I chose, and my colleagues chose to be in the National Assembly because that is a powerful instrument to monitor all aspects of executive authority. You've seen it yourself. the questioning of ministers, the examination of government policy. When you are a minister, it's just your ministry. But when you are a national assembly member, it's every aspect of the nation. But Gambians don't know the power of the national assembly. When I say I'm going to national assembly, that's the position. This is our problem. Our problem is like castigate before at least analyzing policy. I'm not saying don't castigate, how you say whatever you say about it, as long as that's your opinion. I don't insult me if you desire. But take charge of your destiny. Forget about me. I do not matter. It's you who matter. And how your country is governed. Concentrate on that. I can only seek office and you can deny me that office. So you own yourself. So my conclusion is, if we are going to be the architect of our own destiny, each of us must take charge of our sovereignty. Each of us must become sovereign. Each of us become a VIP. Once we are, we can never have a vision that will be misruled, misgoverned, dominated, and subjected to humiliation and degradation. Thank you very much.
We are proceeding.